It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, we're together for the first time since last Wednesday. Had Nick Faribault on here a couple times. Episodes 101 and 102, myself and Nick Faribault. But you're back. You're back after this loss to the Colts. Third straight loss for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot to talk about, especially with Mike Tomlin speaking today on what is once again another short week with the Steelers getting ready for the Cincinnati Bengals on Saturday. But yeah, Mike Monday as opposed to Tomlin Tuesday. We've gotten a little bit accustomed to that. But how we doing?
I'm doing good. Very newsy Mike Monday. So let's kind of just dive into it, I think. I mean, where do you want to start? Let's go with Mason Rudolph is the starting quarterback. Maybe, right? I mean,
it's not going to be Mitch. We know that.
Yeah, right. That's all we know. Mitch is not going to start. So Mike Tomlin said first that they're replacing Mitch Trubisky with Mason Rudolph, and then they want to say that there's a chance that Kenny Pickett might play. So I'm not sure what the point of making a big deal out of Mason Rudolph replacing Mitch is if there's a chance that Kenny is going to play, because I'm sure Mason isn't going to play over Kenny. So I don't know. It's a strange way to make that announcement, but where do you want to start here? The Mitch Mason debate, or is playing Kenny Pickett right now a good idea? I think let's start there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So Kenny Pickett not rolled out for this week. A pretty short timeline, you would think, considering the injury that he had. Obviously, he had this same procedure done on the other ankle at Pitt, missed 3 weeks there. I really had thought, like, if the door would be open for him to maybe come back against Seattle, I think that, like, this week we're still like at least a week above where I thought the timeline would be. But you also look at where this team is at right now. They're very short playoff odds. Everything kind of went against them this past weekend to make those even less likely. So clinging on to those with the small percentage that there is left, do you think there's some rush to getting Kenny Pickett back out there, or like, would it even be something on your radar to do right now? Or just, man, like long term, it's probably not best to put him out there in this situation?
I can see a lot of different viewpoints here, but I'm going to give mine. I don't think there's a rush from the Steelers to get Kenny Pickett out there. I don't. I think the Steelers, and I think that's the reason that Mike Tomlin said things the way that he did. I think the Steelers as an organization are like, fine, let's go with 2. Let's see what Rudolph has. He's been a good soldier. He's said all the right things. He's been a good pro. Mitch did not do what we told him to do, which was take care of the football. And I don't even have a good adjective here, and I'm a professional writer. In horrific fashion, failed to execute that plan. Let's go with that. It's not like he was like mostly careful with the ball and had a little bit of slip up. He was just YOLO slinging it wherever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to. And it feels like the number of interceptions he threw in the last 3 games actually could have been double. So Mitch didn't do what they wanted him to. Mason, I think the Steelers are fine with Mason. I don't think the Steelers are in some big rush to get Kenny Pickett back as an organization. I don't get that sense. But I think Kenny Pickett is in a big rush to get Kenny Pickett back. And, man, on an offense that has been bereft of leadership most of the season, but really, I mean, things have quite come to a head since the absence of Kenny Pickett from the starting lineup in terms of the behavior and the attitudes and the attention to detail on this offense. It feels clear to me that Kenny Pickett has been missed not just as a quarterback, but as a leader. And I think as a leader, he is going to very, very badly want to be out there to not just because he doesn't want to lose, but to show that he is willing to be tough, to play through injury, to be an example to other players about what it means to be mentally tough, to deal with adversity and do it in a positive way. if like the Kenny Pickett I know is going to play. Like, that's just the way I feel. Like, I don't know that that's a good idea. I could hear an argument that the Steelers should hold him back, but I think Kenny Pickett's going to try to play.
And everything you said is fair, and it's kind of nothing. That's the part of Kenny that you can't take away from. One aspect that you have to appreciate is the toughness. For better or worse, you know that he's going to do everything in his power to be out there. And that was an interesting point, because I really hadn't thought about like what has been missing from this lineup other than just the fact that he took a better care of the football for this offense. Sure, they obviously still weren't lighting up the scoreboard on a week-to-week basis, and I'm still not saying that I'm of the mindset that this is their long-term answer at quarterback, but he is clearly the best option for this football team at quarterback for that exact reason. The fact he doesn't turn the football over, and they were operating at a better, not good level with him under center. Yeah, man, that non-tangible stuff that we're talking about here, just his leadership qualities and stuff, definitely have been missed. You just wonder, obviously, hindsight's 2020. We can say things, we can make predictions based off what we've seen and what we think would have happened, but I don't know. Are they sitting here on a 3-game losing streak if Kenny Pickett's able to finish that Arizona game or is able to play against New England or Indy?
No, I don't think there's any way. I don't know about Indy because that game kind of really got out of hand. But the other two, I think they probably have a very good chance to win. Like, I don't know. They were relatively close games, and I feel like I felt pretty good about them winning the Arizona game until Pickett got injured, even though it was tied right there. I felt good about it. Like, I thought they were going to do it. Heck, I think they score on that next play if Kenny Pickett is healthy and they run a quarterback sneak, and then who knows what happens. I don't know. I think they're probably in good position to win that game if Pickett doesn't get hurt. So, yeah, I don't know whether the injury dynamic here is right. So he has this surgery, and they call it like a straitjacket surgery, right? He basically gets like an internal protection for this ligament in order to prevent it from being injured again in the future. And it helps speed the recovery process. So, if he's cleared medically, other than, and Mike Tomlin said this, and this is an important point, other than having enough mobility to be able to protect himself from getting injured in another way, he's not going to hurt the ankle more by playing. So, I don't know. I'm not really sure as long as he can move well enough that he's not going to get killed out there, I'm not really sure what the big downside is for the Steelers to play Kenny Pickett if he's medically cleared and he wants to play, which I'm sure that he does.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because the mobility standpoint is what I was going to bring up the first thing when you talk about switching from, I guess, so we can use that as a segue to the Mason versus Mitch stuff, because that's, the one downside I would say to making this switch that you really have to question. These quarterbacks have been running for their lives behind an offensive line that has had their moments, obviously very good in run blocking, but the pass protection has been very questionable. And when you're talking about, having less mobility than you've already had at the quarterback position, going to Mason, does that make you question why you're making this move, despite the fact that obviously you can't have Mitch continue to just give the football to the other team?
I think they're making this move because they just want to appear to be attempting to try something. I don't think there's any hope from anyone in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform or with Steelers.com and their email address that this is going to result in better play. I think they're just literally Mitch didn't do what he was told, and so now we're just going to try something else. If Mitch had failed while doing what he was told, maybe he'd stick around. But the combination of the two things, I think, is just well, look, I don't know. Try the other guy. That's literally, I don't think anybody thinks this is going to be better. I think you might see some other changes too, though. And I think one of them might be Chooks Okorafor. I think we might see Chooks back in, Dan Moore. As bad as he can play, he played in that game. Those are not dynamic edge rushers on the Indianapolis Colts. DeForest Buckner's a load inside. I looked at the game plan as the bigger problem inside. Why are they running the first series of the game plays that are running at DeForest Buckner that involve Mason Cole blocking him solo? Like, who thought that was a good idea? I just want to talk. Just let me talk to him. I just want to talk. Like that was very dumb. But Dan Moore just got beat like a drum by a very average collection of outside linebackers, out the defensive ends. Why not go back to Chooks, especially in a game where you figure like if Mason plays or if Kenny plays, either way, you're not going to have a very mobile quarterback that probably is going to need protection. Chooks is the best pass blocker of their three tackles. I think you might get in. I mean, Tomlin hinted there could be further changes beyond just swapping Mitch for Mason. To me, that's right at the top of the list in terms of further changes that could be made.
So this is just based off your opinion because of the performance you saw. That wasn't like necessarily hinted at specifically or anything.
News here, but like if there are further changes to make, that's one of them, and I think it would dovetail with either way playing a quarterback with limited mobility.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. But you're okay. So you're saying it's Broderick back to left tackle?
I don't know. I've always thought Chooks was better suited to be a left tackle anyway. We'll see. I think Broderick really struggled in that game in pass protection, man. Like, I think Chooks is the best pass blocker of the three. I have always thought that. I still do think that.
I have to agree for the time being, and it's kind of I put this out there on Twitter, but like Broderick came out of the gates hot, and we expected like he would take his lumps for sure in pass pro, but like really not good these last 3 weeks. And I'm not discouraged about it. Like long term, I think he's going to be fine. But like, does it worry you about the amount of time that he continues to spend with his coaching staff developing him?
I mean, it doesn't really worry me other than like it just reinforces that I think they've got to make a change at offensive line coach in addition to the other things that need to happen on offense. Like I don't really see when you look at Dan Moore's not playing better. Broderick Jones not really seeing growth. Mason Cole worse this year than last year. Isaac Seumalo worse this year than last year. I guess James Daniels is playing okay. Like really, like across the board, the offensive line has been worse than we expected them to be. I don't know how you retain your offensive line coach in that scenario.
Yeah, and individually, maybe you can make it. Daniels to me has probably been about the same, maybe a little bit better, but like pretty much across the board, everybody's either stayed the same or been worse this year than last year. So like, are you going to tie Broderick Jones' long-term development to a coach where you've seen that type of regression under?
No, I don't expect Pat Meyer to be back next year. And I don't think that's a particularly difficult decision at this point.
Yeah. I'm very intrigued by that, but I also wanted to bring up the safety situation that the Steelers have for very different reasons. They're going to be without both starting safeties next week. Now, Minkah Fitzpatrick, we saw him go down in this Indy game, already ruled out at this point with that knee injury. Was hopeful it wasn't something too serious because he was sitting on the bench for a while. Thought like looked like he was maybe like testing it out and just trying to get it loose or something, but already rolled out at this point. That's not good. And then Damontae Kazee suspended for the rest of the season and any potential playoff games should the Steelers somehow get into the playoffs for that hit on Michael Pittman Jr. Alan, you put out there that you fully expected him to be suspended for that hit. Didn't know that I saw anybody else really saying that was their expectation. A lot of people were defending the hit and such. But yeah, so the Steelers already very thin at safety. But Trenton Thompson also dealing with an injury stinger that he had to come back into the game for. Probably, do you think I'm going all over the place here, but I will start Trenton Thompson because it's the least impactful of those and probably be able to return the earliest. If that were something where you weren't down and so thin at safety, do you think he comes back into that game still?
I don't know. Stingers are very painful, but they're not usually like long-term worry injuries. It's mostly just about whether the guy can go or not. So like if he played, then I assume that he would have played.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it was more out of necessity than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, stingers are just about pain and like whether you can deal with the pain or not. So, I mean, if he was able to go do it, I assume he would have gone and done it. Whether they need that, we got to the point in the Steelers season where the loss of Trenton Thompson was seen as significant.
Yeah.
Is really telling about the war of attrition on the defensive side of the ball and what it's done to this defense.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's start with Minkah here. Wasn't a
What
good
a frustrating
knee
season
injury
for
to
Minkah.
me. What an awful season. I mean, just gosh, hamstring, missed 4 games, four and a half games. Playing with a broken hand. Now this. I mean, I wouldn't fault Minkah if he just hung him up for this year. It's funny because Mike Tomlin said, I'm not willing at this point to say if it's a season-ending injury. The cynic in my brain said, yeah, because you're waiting to see if you'll lose this week or not. Because if they lose, should probably not play Minkah Fitzpatrick anymore. Like, just let the man go in peace. Like, there's no reason to keep going. If they win, I guess try to get him back, but there is no such thing as a 1 week knee injury that I'm aware of. Like, if you injure your knee, it is usually like at least a couple weeks before you get back. So this is just like a bruise, but then I can't imagine him being ruled out of this week's game already.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like if you're ruled out of this week, you're probably looking at a couple. So I would not expect to see Minkah for a couple weeks. And gosh, if it's, I don't know, maybe they get to a point where that Ravens game is a must-win game. Maybe Minkah comes back for that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Hey, who knows? Maybe they do backdoor themselves into a position still. But what a frustrating season. You mentioned the injuries, but like that on top of having to play so out of position from where he normally would be and just taking on a completely different role for himself. Like, yeah, man, he probably just wants this season to be over with and have a fresh start. I mean, man, one thing after the next for Minkah Fitzpatrick this year. And then, like I said, for very different. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't feel like Omar Khan. I think Omar Khan had a very good offseason, and I really do think that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the decisions the double-barrel decisions to not bring back Terrell Edmonds and not bring back Cam Sutton really, really hurt the defense's ability. Not bring those guys back, I think, has really hurt Minkah Fitzpatrick's ability to be a playmaker. Like, he's been an eraser. He's taken guys away, but he has not been able to be just a playmaker for this defense the way he has been in the earlier parts of his career. And I think it's mostly because they don't have anybody else to be an eraser. And, I think Chris Hope came out and blasted Minkah, and I'm like, I think you're not paying attention to the root cause of that problem. It's not because Minkah's been playing poorly. It's because the job they've asked him to do had to change because they got worse around him. Like they Patrick Peterson playing as a slot corner all the time never panned out. Shannon Sullivan, I think, has been just okay. Damontae Kazee has not played very well at strong safety when he's played strong safety. Ken O'Neill injured and not, I don't think he was a problem, but he wasn't great or anything before that. There were not those options like they had when they had Edmonds and Sutton to just allow Minkah to freelance and go do his thing. And I think that's the biggest reason why he hadn't made that many plays. And then the injuries on top of that have really just made this kind of a lost season for him.
Man, like, that's the thing too. The Cam Sutton thing, I get, the contract that he got. Maybe they weren't willing to go there with him. They didn't value him in that way. Obviously, very good player. They appreciated the, multiple hats that he could wear for the defense, the versatility, very smart player. But with Edmonds, man, like with what he got from Philly, I know he's since been traded to Tennessee. Like, we talked about it before. Maybe it was just for them chasing ball skills, like across their secondary, wanting guys. But what's funny about that is you then took Minkah away from being able to utilize his ball skills by not having that guy play next to him. So regardless of if you wanted to move on from
Yeah,
him because you
it
didn't
was
think he
like
offered
the best
like
laid plans, right? Like they went
yeah.
into it with good intentions, but I think the result was that the Steelers ended up worse. And Edmonds, I think he wanted a multi-year deal. He's a freak athlete. Like, I'd have given it to him. I don't know. I think that was a mistake, and I think it's one that still hurts right now. Maybe he comes back. I don't know. We'll see. But Kazee, mentioned him briefly, was very good as a free safety when he was replacing Minkah Fitzpatrick. In fact, I think he was his best this year when he was playing in that role, but he isn't going to be playing in that role anymore. At least it doesn't look like it right now.
Yeah. I briefly mentioned the suspension. We can talk more about it, but yeah, suspended for the rest of the season. That includes the playoffs should the Steelers, again, I say somehow find themselves in the position to play in the postseason. But this hit on Michael Pittman Jr., which has been widely talked about, no matter who you are, local and national, even Tom Brady coming out talking about this play, Alan. So what do we make of this? Are we a little bit surprised? This is a guy that was, originally fined 5 times this year. 4 of those 5 have been rescinded by the league. But, is this just because it is a guy that, again, has been given 5 fines by the league, or like they think that hit was that egregious to warrant this on its own? Like, where are we at with this?
I thought the hit was pretty bad. You look at the replay, man. I tweeted it, and it's hard to watch. I can't believe that Michael Pittman got up. I really can't. It's as bad of a hit as you're going to see in football. And honestly, his actions are indefensible. You can't hit a defenseless receiver in the head. He wasn't even looking at what he was aiming at. He led with the crown of his helmet. He didn't hit Pittman with the crown of his helmet because he missed, because he wasn't looking at what he was aiming at, not because of altruism. His actions got lucky that it wasn't worse. I can't defend that form, that playing style. You just can't do that. And I was not surprised he was suspended. I said as much after the game. I'm a little surprised it's 3 games. That feels excessive to me. I think it will get reduced on appeal, maybe 1 or 2. But I think the length of the suspension is probably because of Kazee's history. He's been suspended before. He's been fined before. This is not new ground for him, right? So that probably influenced the length of the suspension. But I thought that's as bad of a hit as you're going to see, man. I don't know. I don't know what – I understand. First of all, Mike Mitchell defended him, which is freaking hilarious to me, because if I'm that guy, I'm like, yo, Mike, please, you saying I did a good thing just makes me look more guilty. That's like OJ tweeting this guy probably didn't kill anyone. What are you doing here? Mike Mitchell, the guiltiest of all safeties, said I didn't do it. Great, thanks. Appreciate your assistance here. I expect him to be suspended. I think it's a suspension-worthy play. I think that's a reasonable standard for the NFL. You can defend that play in ways that you can look at the tape afterwards and say, hey, look, man, I tried. What did Kazee do that you can point to and say, hey, look, man, I tried? There's nothing. He's not making a play on the ball. His head's not up. His head's down. He's not looking at what he's hitting. He's delivering a blow to a defenseless player, whether it was in the head or not. It was just unnecessary. Pittman's flying through the air. The ball, he is holding the ball right out to Kazee. Here, please take this from me. He never even looks at the football. It's an indefensibly bad it's an indefensibly bad play. And that's why I wasn't surprised he would be suspended, because I don't think there's an argument to be made that he shouldn't be.
I thought he would get a game on that.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see it was the rest of the season. To your point, it could very well get reduced based off him appealing, but the fact that was even the initial rolling kind of took me by surprise. Maybe they are, kind of piggybacking off of what they handed down to Kareem Jackson and like saying, okay, we really, really, really want to eliminate these types of plays. The one thing that I really struggle with, and again, this isn't the fault of Michael Pittman Jr., it's more on Gardner Minshew, is the angle that Pittman Jr. is laying out to make that play. Again, I fully understand what you're saying. I just said that I agree that he should have been suspended for a game. But, in the heat of the moment with Damontae Kazee being the type of player he is, for better or worse, I'm not surprised that it ended the way that it did. And how much blame can you put on Gardner Minshew for that play happening?
I don't put any blame on Gardner Minshew for that play happening.
Okay.
I mean, look, it's a different league. Michael Pittman has the expectation that if he dies out and lays out directly in front of the defensive player, that no matter what, he will not be hit in the head. He should have that expectation. And his quarterback should have that expectation too, because those are the rules of the league. So I don't blame either of them. Now, again, if Kazee just breaks down with his head up and his chest out, and he will still clobber Michael Pittman with that hit and almost certainly knock the ball out. And he still might get flagged for it. But at least he could defend his actions and say, look, I tried, my head's up, I'm making a play on the ball. There is nothing else I can do. Like, people in the comment section are like, what do you want him to do? Let him catch it? I'm like, no, there's a very obvious thing to do that is not the thing that he did. I don't understand that. Play the football like that. It was right there. Like, go get an interception, rip it away from him. Like that. That's what needed to happen there.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think to your point about the way that the league, you said, not putting blame on them because of the way that the league is now and stuff. I think that's the thing, is like, you're asking guys to kind of, I'm not saying that you ever should have made plays that Damontae Kazee has made, the plays that he's made, but we've seen, obviously, I'll throw back another Steelers name here, Ryan Clark, make similar plays when you could make those types of plays. And you're kind of asking guys to retrain themselves to play a different way. They have to do it. That's the way that the game is now. But I think it's easier said than done to do those types of things.
I mean, that's true, but we've had targeting in college football since 2013, 14. Like, that's targeting in college football. That's easy to I understand that there was a time when that hit was a good hit, an illegal hit, but every player that's in the NFL right now came up in a time where it was not. So I don't buy that as an excuse.
Okay.
And if Ryan Clark played like Ryan Clark played when he played in the NFL right now, he'd be thrown out of the league. Forget a 3-game suspension. Like, that'd have banished him to playing in Japan. That would have been the end of it.
That seems like the path Kareem Jackson's kind of on right now.
Yeah, he's headed there.
Yeah.
What's the Adam Silver meme? Learn to speak NFL Europe. That's where you'd be heading right now. You can't play that way anymore. The game has changed. And all of these players have come up in an environment that is reflective of that hit being illegal. And it's not like that is new to any of these guys.
So let me bring up, I mentioned before that Tom Brady was somebody that kind of spoke out about this. And this is a guy, obviously, no longer in the league, but he kind of played through all of it with the duration of his career. Nobody likes seeing players get hurt. Hard hits happen. QBs should not be throwing the ball in areas where they are exposing their own teammates to these types of hits. Coaches need to coach better. QBs need to read coverages and throw the ball to the right places, and defenders should aim for the right hitting areas. To put all the blame on the defensive player all the time is flat out wrong. Need better QB play. It's not okay, QBs, to get your wide receivers hit like this because of bad decisions. That's why I asked about Minshew.
I respect Tom Brady's opinion, but the league stance is that is not the case. That 100% of the onus is on the defensive player, and the offensive players should have the expectation to be able to do that. And if the rules say I have the expectation to be able to do that, then it shouldn't, it's not wrong to do it. I get what he's saying, but that's not you can't criticize. Can I say that the NFL should change the rule? Maybe, but I'm not going to criticize Gardner Minshew for putting his receiver in that position when the rules say he's allowed to do that and there should be no consequences for doing it. Like, I can't criticize Minshew. And my response to that would be, to Tom would be, okay, what's your proposal? Are you going to fine Gardner Minshew for getting his wide receiver hit? How do you get this type of collision out of the game? How do you hold offensive player responsible? What is a reasonable way to impact that change other than what the standard is right now?
I don't think what would you possibly do to the like an offensive player that is what do you Gardner Minshew's going to get suspended for a game because of that?
He threw a hospital ball? Like I don't know, like what? Like there's no reasonable way to get hits like this out of the game other than holding a defensive player responsible. And by the way, there's a perfectly good analog for this in sports that has existed for all of eternity that no one ever bats an eye or questions, and it's high sticking in hockey. High sticking in hockey is always the fault of the person with the stick. It does not matter what the other person did. If you hit them with your high stick, it is your fault. And we just accept that because it's always been that way. But it is literally the exact same concept, that the aggressor has to absorb responsibility for the actions at the end of the day because there's no other reasonable way to go about it.
Yeah.
Now look, if you want to say Steelers, like, hey, football's violent, these guys know what they're signing up for, I'm okay with that hit. I'm not saying I like completely agree. I don't really disagree either, though. Like, I think there is, like, and look, this is a completely different conversation than like the hip drop conversation, which I think the NFL is drastically overstepping on. But like, look, if Damontae Kazee makes that hit 10 times, one of those 10 times Michael Pittman Jr. never walks again. I'm not okay with those odds. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm not okay.
Yeah, that's fair. It was definitely
thing,
reckless.
The protecting the quarterback thing. Like, I agree that I think the NFL has a tendency to overstep when it comes to protecting offensive players and limiting what you can do as a defense. This, to me, is not one of them. I see these guys. I get to know them. I want all of them to be able to continue to walk. There is no sport out there where paralysis is a required risk to accept to participate in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the way that you put it before, and like I would put my own twist on my thought on it, is I didn't think it warranted a 3-game suspension, but it was pretty much luck, the fact that it didn't.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
And that's kind of where I've stood with it. We will see if that gets reduced. Do you think that I would expect that it does? I don't know if you expect it to. Okay.
I think there's no chance that the playoff part of it holds up. And I would be very surprised if it's not reduced to at least 2 games and maybe even 1 game. I think 1 game felt appropriate to me, but we'll see. I mean, look, the other thing is, and I know the NFL doesn't really do this, and it's one of the only things in the world that hockey gets right, is that, look, man, 1 week 17 game is like 3 games in September. And let's acknowledge that too.
Yeah.
Like,
it would be really funny if this.
If you ask the Steelers, would you rather have Damontae Kazee for week 16 or all of September? I think they're picking week 16, like 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with, where they are right now, like literally every single game they need to win, plus get help. Yeah. But if the league was like, you know what? Yeah, the Steelers aren't making the playoffs anyway, so we could just get rid of that portion of the suspension and just, made a mockery of them. All right, Alan, good conversation on here. I know for a fact we're going to get some great comments about this play, and I can't wait to read those. So comment down below. Let us know what your thoughts are, not on just that, but everything that we've obviously discussed here. Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, where I correctly predicted this. And Smitty, you should share the meme of me giving myself the Medal of Honor about being right. And at PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Make sure you sign up for SM Plus. I'm only promising that's around until the end of the year, so make it happen. And use promo code Allen10 to get your 10-ish% off. And like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Keep this thing going. I have Mike Tomlin's comments about Damontae Kazee. He defended him and said he's not a dirty player, which, given the history of the fines, is a bit of an interesting stance for me. But that's right up one video here on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, just crossed 10,500 subscribers, by the way.
Nice.
I don't feel like taking the time, and I don't want to sit here in silence while I send it to myself, but this is the photo, if it will come through on my phone, that Alan is referring to. That's the Barack Obama putting a medal on Barack Obama, but I photoshopped Alan's face onto Barack Obama for both of the images. So that's what that is. Maybe I'll make sure that we have that in the can now, so I can pull it up at times when Alan does correctly predict something on the show. I'm Zachary Smith, PGH. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments. Like I said, leave us a 5-star review if you were listening somewhere else, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers afternoon drive.